When you least expect it, the craziest things happen. When I arrived in Calgary, I was looking for a free campsite. But hear for yourself what happened in episode 13 from the Walky Podcast. Okay, yeah, we're recording the next episode from my Walky Podcast, and I'm very happy and excited to have two guests now at their own home. So I'm the guest at your place. You are the guests on my podcast. I want to start with reading something, how I found you, because it's very interesting. I will read the ad of your daughter, what I found on iOverlander app. And this is: my parents live on the street and wouldn't call the cops if you pull up to sleep in front of their house. Small rigs, vehicles only. All they ask is don't pee on the honeyberry bushes. If you need anything, email my mom and she would probably offer you laundry, water, shower with some heads up. They love fan folks. Respect the property and bring them a story or write them a note to say thank you. And I read this and I felt like, wow, this is the place where I have to go. This is how we met. I'm very happy to have you here, Rod and Joline. I don't know how long I'm here. Like, I had a few days before I left to Germany, and now I'm here back for a few days.
Yeah.
Rod, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Yeah.
It's the first time for you in a podcast, I guess, or you did something like this before?
I have done a couple podcasts. Yeah.
You've been a guest before.
I have.
Nice. Yeah. And you, Joline?
No, this is my first podcast.
Okay.
How am I? The other question. I'm good. It was a busy day. As a school teacher, I come home and it is my refuge. So yeah, that's how it feels right now.
Yeah. So I asked you, Joline, first, what is for you means encountering or encounter in general? Like, do you have special encounters in your life, or what does it mean to you? If there's some a feeling about it or opinion, or what does it mean to you?
There's something about an exchange, because I pass by a lot of people in a day, but I don't encounter them. And they don't encounter me. So
you wouldn't say it's an encounter?
No.
Like, yeah.
And again, like class changes and I'm walking by hundreds of people, but I'm only looking at 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big part of it. And the exchange, it's big because for me, I don't let people encounter me often. I'm not often the initiator of that. And I also am guarded when someone tries to encounter me. So for a true encounter to happen, I know it was intentional on my part. I don't feel like I accidentally have encounters. Yeah. Not me. I'm too measured.
And you, Rod?
I think if you could turn that inversely, then you would have me. Yeah. Encounters all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like even just driving home from Golden yesterday, the colors through Highway 95, they're still yellow. It's like they're a couple weeks behind us in the weather. And it just, it grabs my heart, I think is what I would say about an encounter. Like something from the outside has some kind of an impact on me. So the way the light hits a side of the mountain, the way, I don't know, the look of somebody, the smile of somebody.
So it don't have to be a person.
No, it doesn't have to
be anything.
Yeah, anything. Yeah. Yeah, lots of times it's the natural world. Remember hiking and a little bubbling brook was, giggling down the side of the mountain. And I kind of burst into tears because it felt like it was just in its bliss, this creek. So that was an encounter that I had. It somehow, I don't know, it's like a slap in the face or something in some capacity where it's just like you wake up, and that's kind of how I was.
Do you control it sometimes? Like how you open to that or not? Or you never thought about it?
I think I'm pretty open always. I think I think it actually feeds me. Like I'm always on the hunt for something like that.
Nice.
Which can not be always good.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about how for me, nature is maybe the one exception that
where you're open.
It chooses to encounter me. And then I have to reciprocate. People are much more calculated. I'm more calculated towards people. Yeah. But I would agree that Rod he's just ready for any kind of invitation. And I have to go looking for them. People usually are his domain.
It's interesting because you are the teacher.
Yeah.
And you are the farmer. So it would be normal if you said the other way around.
Yeah, I'm out by myself. And
I do want to say I did 1 year of full-time teaching and now 16 of part-time because I can't.
Yeah. Let's go to this later. I would like to hear how it was for you to meeting me, and how does it come that an ad like this is on a camping app and people can find you and have a beautiful time like me with you together?
We, as you said, it was our daughter who got us to post on there, and she'd done a bunch of traveling, hitchhiking around New Zealand, traveling through Asia for several weeks with her sister. And then she hitchhiked from Halifax to near Toronto, St. Catharines. And then in all of those months and weeks relied on the kindness of strangers. And so it was so clear to me, Rod, too. But yeah, I could not avoid how clear it was that people were kind to my child. And I want to do the same for other people's loved ones. And interestingly, we used to be on Airbnb, but it was too much for Jolene. It was too much sharing my bathroom. People could come whenever they wanted. They could go in and out. And it was quite invasive. And for some people, they love that. That's why they're on Airbnb. But it was, and then, all the work cleaning up afterwards and organizing the booking end. And just thought, no. And so Rod let us quit that. And then Islander came up as a possibility and thought,
only from Anya.
Yeah, from Anya. And thought, what a neat way to still be generous with what we have. But if upon meeting a person, I don't want them using my washing machine, then I don't have to offer that because they haven't paid a fee for the night. And it self-selected a certain beautiful group of humans.
So the normal way is like you offer people to stay on the street. I was lucky that you offered me a room.
It was pretty cold.
Oh, it was pretty cold, and we had a nice chat already. And then you came out and said, well, if you like, you can stay inside. So how was it like? Is it well used? So a lot of people texting you, sending you emails and want to stay? Or is it?
I feel like we had probably one a week. And I actually came to it late. I didn't know what it was. I got a text or an email from Jolene saying, there's some people that are going to show up. She'd already headed off to Nelson.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, and even like the ad, I'm glad you read it because I think I've only heard someone talk about it once before. So I've never really seen the ad. And so I feel like we were getting maybe somebody once a week. And I don't know if it's the way that Anya wrote the thing that already weeded out some people. But it seems like the people that have come through have been a pretty great slice of
maybe
humanity.
it's also because you have to. A lot of people, if they're traveling in their car, they have their privacy and they have their space, and they. Yeah, I think you have to cross a bit the border to stay on a street at unknown random people. And to open yourself, because if you go in an interaction with random people, you have to be open. If you go to the campsite and pay your fee and go to your site, you don't have to say who you are and where you're from, whatever. Just put your passport on and give them the dates. So if you meet people like you, I know you normally like to meet random people, or you should.
That's right.
We do. It's true.
Yeah. I think Anya knew that. Our kids moved out. And we got a little bit of extra kindness and love to give. So.
Yeah.
And now 2 empty rooms since they're gone. So yeah, often when we met, well, when I pulled up after work and you were standing in front of your vehicle, and I thought that must be him. And you turned around and like the smile right away, I knew that was who I thought it was. And then we just chatted.
While the dog was trying to killing me.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
On the other side of the street.
Oh, that's right.
The pit bull across the way.
Yeah.
No, I survived.
Yeah. So I think you are a perfect example of the average overlander, someone who is minimal in what they need and want for living, also minimal in their social structure, because like you said, they're living in a van, keeping to themselves. What else? I feel like there was trust, a mutual trust when I first met you. As like you're saying, you have to be open to this person who's now making this offer, and you're receiving it. I also recognized your gratitude and not, you didn't invite yourself into the house. You didn't assume anything.
No,
and
never.
We're very thankful for the small things.
Which is the difference between iOverlander and something like Airbnb, where you're paying for a transaction. And what's most striking for me is because, I mean, it was always like, we can do this, honey, with Airbnb. And like something about this mutual vulnerability, no funds exchanging hands, has got Jolene being like the Uber host of iOverlander, you know, because like there was a couple that came after you and she saw them stirring, went out with a already pre-boiled kettle and fresh made muffins so that when they woke up, they didn't have to start their camp stove and whatever. And these people were like, we didn't think people like you existed in the world. And I'm like, what is the, like, she absolutely hated people coming into her space.
I did.
In the Airbnb thing, but somehow this other free human to human thing just unleashes some kind of a hospitality genie.
Maybe it's more respectful because there's no expectations because of the money or something. Yeah.
I think there's a deep, I think when you mention you like this sense of gratitude, you know that anything you do is going to be appreciated. And the iOverlanders know that anything that we offer is also going to be appreciated on their side. Mm-hmm. And so it's like this mutual appreciation, which is just such a gift in these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was like thinking when I read the ad, was like, oh man, this is exactly what I want to offer if I have the possibility, or if I live in a place like you and have the space, I would definitely do the same, and I would try. So I was thinking like to figure it out, behind it.
And one other thing that's behind it for me is this deep, deep belief that kindness is so powerful. It triggers all kinds of benefits in me and my body and my soul and psyche, and you as the recipient and the neighbor across the street witnessing these people we keep posting and sharing with. And so it's like it just keeps giving, and if I don't leave the world better than I found it, I've failed. That's the one hook. I feel like I'm not a person who has a 5-year plan or a vision or anything, but leave it better than you found it. That's about, and iOverlander is such a great way to do that.
Yeah, and
your sleep was better than it would have been in a parking lot, and
that were also a big reason for me to invite you to being guest on my podcast, because to share with everyone who wants to listen or is interested in the humanity which we created or we have together, like out of nothing, you know, like we didn't know each other 3 weeks before, and now it feels, you said, I'm sitting in your living room, you come home after a long weekend and say, welcome home, Jan. You know, like, and I feel like exactly like this, which is, I mean, very, very beautiful to have these experiences.
Have you had anything comparable as you've been driving around? I mean, you haven't a lot of van lifing more.
Yeah, I think I never did. also, I guess, because I was not open for it. Like, I think I changed a bit in the last years to get in these situations where you don't feel comfortable, but I'm interested in, like meeting random people. But a long time, sometimes I feel to stay in my car alone or with the guys I'm traveling with, and I'm not really interested in having this experience. So yeah, I didn't have something like this. But to be honest, I had thousands interesting encounters already in the last year and in the last few years. I think it also depends because if you travel a lot, it makes a huge difference, and you much more spontaneous to get in crazy situations and chats with random people. So a lot of interesting things in my mind. Because when I arrived, I didn't know you and we talked. I remember the first day with Rod. I don't know, we just started talking, and after 2 or 3 hours sitting in the kitchen, we were getting deep in, I don't know, deeper as we ever did, I guess, with random guys. But the interesting thing is, like, we are in the middle of Calgary. I have a teacher here, which is for a city not that special, but a lot of people wondering, what is the farmer doing in the city? So I was wondering as well, like, what are you doing? And I asked you, I mean, it's not a typical farmer, but if you like a little bit about your job, what you're doing, because I think it's super interesting.
Yeah. Well, it was when I dropped you off at the airport. Like, so what do you call yourself? I'm like, I don't actually know. Farmer was the closest thing I came. And yeah, so for me, it started by taking people's yards, and they would give them to me. I would turn them into vegetable plots and then sell the produce to high-end restaurants and farmers markets in the city. And that was really fed by a notion called spin farming. And so small intensive farming is what SPIN stands for. You know, there was a business plan that you could download from spinfarming.ca. And so actually James' brother and I started that back in 2010. And so we've been doing that I've been doing it for 12 years, various. And so it's kind of morphed now into, I'm being a community farm we got some land from the province of Alberta, 30 acres, which is a pretty big chunk of land, and creating space for newcomers to learn how to grow in our climate. So a lot of newcomers come to Calgary with agriculture backgrounds. We put them in the city and tell them to thrive, and that's problematic for most. But then also really trying to learn from the Indigenous community. And so they're the ones that have lived in harmony in this land for thousands of years. And we've somehow, over the period, been able to kind of decimate a lot of the ecological systems. And so wanting to kind of bring their knowledge into it. And what I've actually discovered, this is maybe a little bit of a side, but what I've discovered in the process is that our newcomers have so much more in common with our Indigenous community than they do with, someone like myself as part of the colonial system or whatever. From kind of creation stories to designs on clothing that they would wear to, the circles to discuss and communicate. So there's been all of these beautiful connections from newcomers that come basically indigenous to their own lands. They've been displaced and so that's a beautiful part. Anyway, so that's part of my farm city is kind of helping people create space for people that don't necessarily have access to agriculture. And the other one is, when I was working with my company called Leaf and Lyre, started a farmer cooperative. And so initially it was with just a bunch of us, more like myself, that are trying to take back agriculture in the urban context. And we created a cooperative now, a a weekly harvest box of vegetables for Calgarians, grow either in the city or just within 200 kilometers of the city of Calgary.
200
kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
So roughly an hour and a half, kind of circle around the city of Calgary. And so, and typical, I don't know if you're aware of your typical food from a grocery store travels between 25 and 3,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
And so we're really trying to reduce those food miles by kind of offering. And then, I mean, I took you to that rooftop. And so like there's just some unique things that are happening at the urban level. So that was garden boxes on top of the roof. We've got hydroponic systems that are taking over warehouse spaces to grow fresh greens, which is an important part of the local food system because we're under snow for 7 months of the year kind of thing. And so,
what's the impact of it? Like, do you see or you know that's changed something?
Yeah, you're really going for it here. So this is what...
Because,
this is what makes me excited about living life.
Yeah.
Is that, industrial agriculture, like if you look at the UN, they point to it being responsible for 24% of greenhouse gas emissions on the planet. In Canada, the numbers are 12%, but I don't think they add as much, like some of the transportation they don't necessarily put in to that number. So conventional agriculture is a sustainable system currently. And so what we really focus on is soil health. And happy to geek out about that if you want. But like if you improve the health of the soil, you're able to kind of hold the carbon that's currently in the atmosphere back in the soil. We don't have more carbon than we ever had. Like it's the same carbon since the time of the Big Bang or God created or whatever your narrative is. We still have the same amount of carbon. It's just too much of it's in the atmosphere.
Wrong place.
It's in the wrong place. Yeah. And so we've got this crazy technology called a plant that can take the carbon out of the atmosphere and put it next to its roots. But when you cultivate the soil, you're releasing that carbon back into the atmosphere all the time. So a lot of people, we live in Calgary, which is like the mecca of oil in Canada. And so a lot of people look at oil as being the bad guy around carbon in the atmosphere, when in fact it's probably agriculture. And once we started kind of really disking and cutting up the soil, that's where a lot of that carbon has released into the atmosphere. So when you now understanding that, then you start to do practices that actually keep that soil in place, keep it covered with plants because they're doing the work. You're adding compost. So we need to build the amount of soil that we have. The UN talks about, we have 60 years of farming left. The UK came out and said, we've actually only got 25 years of farming left. And so there's a crisis around agriculture that we're facing. But then I've got farmers that are part of our cooperative that run a very intensive, it's called mob stock grazing. And so you put a lot of cows in a defined space with electric fence, and then you move them on a daily basis. And so then that piece that they were on, they don't actually come back to it for 45 days or something like that. And so what they're trying to do is mimic the migration of bison. Mm-hmm. So we'd have a huge, herd of bison back in the early days. They'd be stomping on things, pooping on stuff, and then they'd be gone. They wouldn't come back to that space. And so all of them, the hooves do a little bit of important action. The poop does some important action. Them eating the tufts of grass does something else with the plant. And so all of those things move towards this regenerative system. And so this farm, they bought it conventional, normal, chemical agriculture. They bought it, they did a test, and they had 0.5% organic matter in the top layer of their crop. So they set a goal of 20 years to kind of increase that to 15%. Which is pretty aggressive. Yeah. They ended up achieving that in 3 years so they'd run their cattle, and they also have chickens that they would follow around. So the chickens would go and scratch the poop and the bugs and different things.
What was it initially?
So 0.5% to between 10 and 15%, depending on where they were on their farm. And so like that's science bending practical action that farmers are taking that changes the scientific narrative. The scientists didn't think that was actually possible. And so like if we then transition all of our agricultural land into these practices, we can get to pre-1974 carbon in the atmosphere levels. So it's a big claim.
Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of what's been planted in me is we need to get more farmers farming this way. And we need to get more eaters eating the food that's farmed this way.
Yeah.
Because right now, most eaters are like, well, what's the point? Like, we're all going down. Like, there's a lot of mental health issues. I was listening to CBC radio today. And people are struggling.
Yeah.
And when you're in that kind of struggle, you're not making value-based decisions anymore.
Yeah.
You're just going to do what's the easiest thing in front of you.
Yeah.
And so we've got a bit of a crisis, but I want to be that hopeful voice that says, no, we actually can do something about this. So
Nice.
That was a very long answer to the impact.
I love long answers.
And you're just getting started.
And I'm just
2 or
getting
3
started.
hours if you're on.
That's why we were sitting for 3 hours, I'm sure.
Oh, we didn't talk about that in this years. Yeah. How do you think about consume food and
Miss Paleo.
especially as a
Yeah.
teacher? I mean, you're close to education and to the next generation. And
Mm-hmm. It's interesting as a teacher, when I taught younger children, a lot more of what foods they were eating.
what do you teach?
Now
by the
I'm
way?
teaching grade 8 and grade 10 math for the last several years. But I began the first 9 years, I was in the earlier grade 1 to 6. And so it was, lots of parental involvement at that age. Then they hit junior high and they're making their own lunch, a lot of them. And what I often see is kids by 10 o'clock have eaten their lunch.
Yeah.
And then because maybe they eat breakfast or they didn't have enough. So they're hungry again at noon and they just go walk down to the corner store.
Yeah.
And so, I can't speak for their health necessarily, but I know that if quality food is not affordable, it's very easy to just go walk down and pay $1.30 for a piece of sugar.
Yeah.
Personally, I just over a year ago decided to go to a whole different style. I think that's actually been a big part of my food narrative, is that it's lifestyle. Because to go from a regular diet to a paleo diet, so I cut out dairy, sugar, grains, and then there's certain legumes. I've been avoiding those. I've dabbled a bit lately, and I have noticed my tingly legs back. So I made that decision one night after day 10 of a headache, and it was waking me in the night. I would wake up with it. I would go to bed with it, and taking some pretty strong drugs, and it wasn't touching it. And so I just thought, on the advice of my daughter, who'd completed a nutrition program, a holistic nutrition certificate. Mom,
Same one that posted the ad.
yeah, same.
Same daughter.
Mom, you should stop gluten for sure. And you should stop sugar. And you should stop dairy and just see what your body does.
Yeah.
And I went from 5 headaches a week to maybe 5 headaches in the first 5 months.
Nice.
And my sleep was better. I was having all these tingly arms and legs, puffy feet by the end of the day, just achy joints. And those symptoms have radically subsided. They're maybe 10% of what they were. And I'm 47, so I'm also hitting some kind of hormone circus, but I feel like that has been better, and that affects all those other things.
Yeah.
So for me, yes, feeling so good after cleaning up my eating, it's actually quite easy to stick to it. In our staff room, there's donuts and cheese buns and treats all the time, but I know if I have that cheese bun, I'm going to feel a headache in five hours. So it hasn't been that difficult. I feel like for people who maybe don't see as drastic a change because of their food choices, it's much harder to shift and keep making the good choices. But
the real drama was, because I've been doing this farming thing for 10, 11 years, And
I know what you're going to say.
Jolene's always been like, you're tracking in dirt and mud. But when she went paleo, she's like, where are the vegetables? I need more vegetables. So I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I didn't even really used to like that, but now I definitely.
I feel like she's on my team now.
The lifestyle piece, too, I was going to say that to learn to cook different with different foods takes time.
Yeah.
And so I had the luxury of some weeks in front of me on my summer break to be able to relearn how to shop and find new recipes. And
you have to take your time for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
A lot of people living a life where they don't take the time for cooking.
Yeah. And it's the choice you make. So then it's the circumstance that you have to live with because you chose it. And in that way. And that's not to say that someone else going paleo is going to be healed from some terminal disease. But I look at people who talk that, I need to lose weight, or I want to get in better shape, or I have these headaches. Maybe that would help me. I should. But then they never move towards it.
Yeah, I mean, it needs a mindset to change life in these directions.
Yeah,
it really does. And I mean, you saw me making faces about just the inability of people to kind of take the time.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I got a theory about that. I think I was exposed to it somewhere, but just this idea of the earth being, like, a lot of cultures will call it Mother Earth. I think there's it's like the nurturer of all of us, which is kind of from a sacred feminine perspective. But we've lived in this colonial system, this, dog eat dog, reach to the, it's all about the bottom line kind of thing, a very linear, extractive system, which has devalued the body of the earth. And so part of me is just like, okay, well, our system, the structure that we built, separates us from the body of the earth. We are the earth. If you dig into it, like we are interconnected beings with all of life. And I feel like we're embodying the pain and sadness of Mother Earth right now. Yeah. And so we move in this direction of grief, mental health, struggling with our mental health. But we haven't, but our system says, here's a solution, just this food or this other thing. But I think the real solution is that we have to kind of come back into relationship with the earth. And I think one of the most beautiful ways that we do that is actually honoring that beet, that sweet potato, that potato, and the relationship that it is. And we need to take time for that. But it's so hard.
And a good relationship
takes time.
It takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to spend time to make it a good relationship.
Yeah.
I just was thinking, as a young mom, I remember the energy you output at work, and then come home and you're on.
You just need something quick.
And I do not at all judge. And so clearly remember when a frozen pizza, I can throw it in the oven for 20 minutes and go do something for 20 minutes, was exactly what our family needed, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we certainly, I do feel privileged to have our home, this property, our space. I'm married to a man who can make anything grow. At least if it's available, or it's possible in Canada, he will do it. And he comes home with all these amazing ingredients that I get to play with. And that's very different from someone who's in just different life circumstances and has to go to the grocery store. And you're not going to choose things you don't know, or choose things that are expensive. So I feel a bit spoiled because Rod does bring home all this bounty from Mother Earth that I have to figure out.
When you talk about Mother Earth, I remember a nice conversation which we had, which I definitely want to share, because before I forget it, I want to talk about now. We had the conversation about swear words, which we're using. And like you came with that along and said, if someone is really weak and not good in something, we call them pussy. And say the word. What did you say then?
was it just speaking about how these insults are often around the female body and degrading the female?
Yeah.
Shout out to Glennon Doyle and We Can Do Hard Things podcast. That is where I learned that.
Yeah.
Great conversation about cussing there. And just getting fired up about how when people demonstrate vulnerability or weakness, or they get called in a degrading way a woman's body part.
Yeah. But you gave a nice sentence, because you said, why we call someone a pussy and think it's means someone is weak. If you see it from the wide way, it's like the strongest thing in the universe.
Oh, the most amazing organ in anybody's body. Yeah.
So
it's not in my body. What are you talking about?
Sorry. Of any organ in anyone's body. The pussy.
So everyone is calling you a
is
pussy.
The fiercest.
Take it as
You're
a compliment.
great.
Don't mention. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely great.
That's right. Yeah, recover that. The power of that word.
Yeah.
It's bringing life.
I've actually thought about that conversation a few times, and recognizing that when I want to insult someone, I will use a generic term that we all have, like asshole.
Yeah.
And I've a few times had that moment where I will default to a word that's a feminine body part in my brain, and then I catch it before I actually like murmur it or mumble it or it's crossed my mind.
Another very interesting thing is what I noticed is that Jolene, you're writing a book. You never did that before.
Mm-mm.
And how did it come that you writing a book?
It's kind of a funny
Just came across
story. No, I'm a technical writer in my
it's a story.
part-time.
That's why I'm asking.
As a technical writer, I do just a bunch of word nerd, linear kind of writing, not narrative or interesting much at all. So I took a course at the university here on how to write grants to get money from foundations and governments. And the final assignment was to write a grant proposal, either pretend or choose an actual something you're interested in and want money for. So I did. I applied to the Calgary Arts Development, and my proposal was that I would like to write a book about my marriage to Rod, our 26-year relationship, which is a mixed orientation marriage. If you're not sure what that means, it essentially is anything that is not the two of you identifying as the same orientation. So I identify straight, and Rod identifies, is there a word? Bisexual is
starting point.
A good starting point.
Yeah.
But because we were in a religious setting, coming out of religious homes and backgrounds, has been closeted for the most part. And so we're in a space, Rod especially, who has a lot more at stake, is in this space with me where we want to begin coming out of that closet. So my grant proposal to the arts development was, I want to write a memoir of our story. And this is I'll go away in the summer. I'll stay in Nelson at this beautiful acreage, and you can pay for it. And they said, okay. So that's how it came about. My first draft is due at the end of 2021. It's not going to be much to read. No one will enjoy it because it's a first draft.
Yeah.
So it'll be another year or two of a process, I think, in going back to revise and add to and rewrite and revise and rewrite
and
I started.
How is it was it always a thing that you thought about writing?
No, not necessarily in that big of a scope.
Yeah.
Like I said, I do just more small contracts that are achievable within a day or a few weeks. Or
what was the timing of you submitting and us being separated for a time?
We were separated at the start of 2020.
Yeah.
And I submitted this in September 2020 and got it. And a couple months later was notified. Yeah. Yeah, that's part of our story. All the elements of relationship, raising kids and owning a home and navigating your own complexities and
being an entrepreneur.
There you go, small business owner. So part of our story was the end of all of that busyness of family life. We needed to take a break and separate, and it's what saved our relationship. So
I really like the thing to share your story because I think it's super helpful if we share more of our experience, especially in relationships. Because there are so many relationships are not going in the right direction or having, I know it would be helpful to talk and hide yourself.
That's been my way, is to be hidden. but I find that what I'm realizing, but at one level, I think, and this is mostly from feedback because I've been struggling with, what's the point? And I think that's
what's the point of coming out at this point
of telling the story, because it feels more like a loss to me than something good. But I think what I'm coming to grips with is the fact that there are a lot of people. So I lived pretending for a lot of my life, and part of that pretending was me trying to do the heterosexual man thing. Like there's a traditional way that you should express that, and I think the more that I pretended, the more that I would get away, and it became a hollow, angry, frustrated, moody, whatever. And so I think coming back to actually telling the story, not only brings that authenticity back to kind of my own life and expression, but I think, and this is what I'm hearing from people, which I'm convinced by, is the fact that we all are in relationships with somebody different than ourselves. We have this inherent desire to kind of birds of a feather flock together kind of thing. Like we want to be with the same.
Yeah.
But I feel like our world is rapidly moving in a direction where that's just not a possibility unless you're in a very remote, very kind of historical, traditional kind of culture. We're mixing like crazy. And so in light of that, like our story of, well, how do you navigate that? Like, like what does that even mean for you guys? Like you can't just lean in on tradition and go, okay, well, you just got to do the man things and you got to do the woman things and hope that at the end of the day, something good happens. And I mean, ultimately, even in those traditional things, you've seen hollow, vacant relationships. And I think that's never really been a goal of mine.
Yeah.
I want to plumb the depth of what a relationship has. And so I think trying to figure out how to put that into words, our experience about that, and my kind of yearning and longing for something that has nothing to do with gender or attraction or that, but just has something to do with your humanity.
Yeah.
Next to my humanity, whatever that looks like. Like, don't judge me. Don't put me in a box. Let's actually share our vulnerable humanity together. And I get a little bit of nervousness right now as I said that.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. I think there's a goodness there. And I think like even how you start, like even with the I Overlander, it's like, well, I'm going to put myself out there.
Yeah.
That kind of nervousness, energy, I think that's what produced this beautiful friendship that we're sitting in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also to sit down with random people and start recording conversations. It's always like very, very interesting how I feel, because I said in the last episode as well, like I'm always nervous, but it's like you're crossing a line. You get like we will never forget each other.
Mm-hmm.
So never ever. Like there's a connection before and it's even stronger now. Mm-hmm. And but you have to take a risk. Like go into that uncomfortable zone and learn how to swim.
And to take a risk in a, like for whatever reason you present as someone, like there's a safety. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, I mean, the risk is an important part of it, but also have your antenna up so that you know that you're in the presence of someone that's not going to throw you under the bus, as it were. Yeah.
Well, even if you would like to try.
Yeah.
I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
How is it with like to write? Do you have some, or you feel sometimes like I have to write now, or can you leave it behind for a while and don't think about it, or is it always in your head and I won't?
It's often in my head.
Yeah.
I'm daily, several times a day. It's either a thought of, I should remember that, or I should look that up or write that down, or when I hit that go back to that chapter, I should. So active that way, but I'm much more structured than I would like to be, I think, because I have to. I have a schedule at school where I'm teaching. I have a principal, though, who gave me Wednesdays off. So I gave myself permission after this summer where I did so much of the writing.
Yeah.
I gave myself permission to take September off from it, which I'm now starting to feel anxious for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good move.
You have to find the way back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Wednesdays now going forward until the end of the year, I could hand in what I have. I could actually call that my first draft, but I still feel like it's not quite built. It's definitely only 2/3 built. But if you looked at it from the outside, it looks like it's a building, but there's nothing on the inside still. Yeah. I find it quite easy to just sit down and get into the task I'm doing, especially now that it's written. The generating of the writing I need a lot of space to sink into that. But now that there's stuff down, I've got half an hour, I can go listen to a podcast on voice. Or if I've got 3 hours, I can crack it open and I can often find a small task or a big task, depending on what time I have in front of me.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I also like writing, but I have, like I told you before, I have to very, very go in a flow. And then for the flow, I need a lot of space around me, and no noise, no people, no sitting out of nowhere. Have a beautiful view, and then I can write. But it's interesting, yeah. Like you said, you have the same when you're writing. You need this space and you have to be in the flow. But now it's like you have something where you can work on.
Exactly.
It's a different thing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. The 5 weeks I spent writing this summer was exactly what you're saying. Beautiful view, no one around. If I felt like writing at 5 a.m, I could, and if not, I hit it at 11 at night. So it was very much an outworking of me. It was me being externalized, and there was no interruptions and boundaries to it. And yes, now I have something that I can either print off and actually hold and work with, or on my screen can begin a lot of structural decisions, because now how do I want to tell a story and all the...
I'm looking forward to read your book at someday.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever
right, I'll make sure.
Whenever it's ready. No pressure.
We get it into your hands.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I've not been allowed to read any of it yet.
No, I told him the first draft is just between me and the people I'm accountable to. Then I'll hire an editor who will help me write something better for
public consumption.
Rod and everyone else.
So we are in a I think and I feel, and this is the most important part, that I'm feeling it, in a very intense part of human being at the moment. A lot of things look like could change, and we have to think different in a lot of ways. One thing is what I always think is that we should share more, everything. What do you think about that, and how could it look like sharing more? Is there something in your mind? What do you think about that?
I'm going to talk first because I know Rod's a big thinker. I'm very concrete, very pragmatic. So when you spoke of that, I thought about us sharing our property. I thought about the little libraries all around our neighborhood. People can just share books. Our church community has recently built a pantry, cupboard, fridge, and freezer, and it's being stocked by community members, and then other community members who have no food to buy groceries that month can go and do some shopping.
Picking, not shopping.
Sorry, picking, yes.
Right.
Receiving, no money there.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a big thing, yeah.
Yeah. car sharing.
Big difference.
So for me, it's those, I'm very small scale, and I honestly believe that I think for myself and receive that love, I change. And when I do that within my family, it transforms our family. And when we do it, and I'm not one to think big and strategic, visionary. I do what's right in front of me. And
I would love to have this view for one day.
yeah, all right. And I'm passing it over to Rod.
I'm always in the big vision. So how can we? How?
When I'm curious, because I've heard that story about the kid who's like bringing the starfish back into the ocean, because out for too long, then they die, and some cynic by and it's like too many starfish on this beach, like you're never gonna get to them all, and the kid's like to that one as he throws it in. Like, would you say that's a similar motivation for you?
Yeah.
Like, I can do this in this moment right now, and I don't have to be overwhelmed by the... Yeah.
But if you dreamed up a vision and created a program and needed someone to just go and get shit done, we'll be all over that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be the orchestrator of it.
You need both.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, I think as much as I will probably launch into the strategy here now, I mean, just even as you're sharing, like, the simplicity and the beauty of what you do in the world is a powerful kind of piece, kind of moving us into the future.
Thanks.
You're welcome. because it's grounding. Like it it's good. But so when I think about sharing, I mean, we were very drawn. I was very drawn. Jolene's a deep introvert, and I think I'm an ambivert, but extroverted-ish on the line. And so we've often talked about community housing and intentional community. Part of my degree back in the day, I studied the history of intentional communities and stuff. But I think on a practical level, like, Jolene needs her space, and I think I do too.
Yeah.
And I think there was some of that, we were trying to avoid some of our issues, which, led to a separation. And so now I feel like we're in a much better place to even have the sharing conversation, whatever that means.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sign up for a commune or anything.
Okay, just make sure we talk before you do.
But I think, what first came to my mind is, so the cooperative that I helped start and am working with, we're right now trying to actually discuss our business structure. And one of the things that we've landed upon is this idea. So one of the value that we really love about the cooperative is that there's shared ownership. So in the food world, you have winners and losers. The health of humans and the planet are losers in the current structure, but then you've got people at the top that are just making top and the middle. Yeah. So the middlemen in agriculture make the money, and the people at the top that it all funnels toward are making the money. The people down at the bottom are not. So the cooperative was ensuring that the farmers get a fair pay. But we're actually recognizing that ownership structure is clunky. And so we've stumbled upon a thing called steward ownership, where your purpose becomes the shareholder ultimately. And so you organize around what you're trying to accomplish. And so for us, regenerative agriculture, improving kind of ecological functions in our local area. And so I think what's kind of exciting about that, and there's a organization called Alternative Ownership, where they're really exploring this from a legal standpoint, and breaking out of the nonprofit, profit, corporate kind of structure. So then creating this third way, which I think is what we definitely need to be thinking about. But the ownership gets shared. It is shared between the farmer, between the eater, between the investor. So everybody has a bit of ownership in this, because you all care about the purpose that you're driving towards. And so I think there's something quite beautiful on a very structural business kind of level for that kind of sharing. Yeah. And it's a little bit pragmatic. Come on. We're going to have it done by March. Figured out how it's going to work. Yeah. But and then I think, like sharing. I think with our resources, I don't like giving things away though for free. I like there to be reciprocity and a mutuality.
Yeah, don't has to be money.
Yeah.
But
so like even like because I'm steeped in the agriculture world, a lot of times like farmers are working very, very hard. Their biggest expense is labor. And then we have these people that don't have access to food, are food insecure, but are they willing to come out and just work for some of that food? And so that's where I'd love to see that bridge kind of happen between sharing. So share your strength and your ability to pull some weeds or dig some carrots. And then the farmer is going to be very happy to share some of the abundance that is coming out. So, but again, it's a very non-economic system. But I don't know. I think it's an important one.
Yeah, I think so too. And especially also sharing thoughts would be very, very helpful to get all other, like, I don't know, to get us back to, talk about what you think. And I think
but don't judge too quickly. I think that's where we're at right now. It's like, you put something out and you either fall into camp A or B in someone's mind.
Exactly. Yeah. This is what I don't know. I think, what I've noticed is that you not often find people or see people, meet people where you have, or where you can talk in a very, I don't know, helpful way where you don't get judged very quick, and where both sides are very open, because like you said before, like it's getting too quick that someone putting you in a box.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, we can, or we should change it a bit to better and deeper conversations with each other, to understand the other side, and not like, okay, you are a farmer.
Yeah.
Point.
Nothing more to say. Right?
You're a teacher.
One of my favorite questions, it's not my own original, but is the question, what's it like to be you right now? A couple weeks ago, I started each grade 8 math class with that question. And I said, this has nothing to do with math, but I'm just curious what it's like to be you right now in your life. Someone, give me something. And one kid took a risk, and another kid took a risk, and another guy he was a clown about it. So I spoke to him later. And then she took a risk, and it just, every class I spent 15 minutes at the front end of each, with those 3 groups of kids. And it was mind blowing how, they knew I wanted to share my attention with them. Dignity it gives someone when you're all about them and you give them that invitation, and then they took that up and shared back. It was super cool. So
nice.
Yeah, those social cocktail party events that I do not shine at, that's one of my go-to questions.
Yeah.
So tell me what it's like to be you. And then people can just go on that question.
I will keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one.
Yeah. Nice. I think we have a guest upstairs and we can finish here after a very nice talk. And I'm very grateful that you shared your time with me after a busy and long day, sitting down with me and talking about life and especially your lives. And I hope, we will have a nice last day, and then we will see us again, definitely at one day. I don't know where, but thank you very, very much.
You're welcome
for all you gave me. Not just your time, your room, your love, your vibes, your food, everything. It was a real pleasure, and I promise you that I will give it back to the next people.
Pay it forward or whatever, whatever they call it. No, it's been great.
Yeah, I want to say I hear your thank you, and I want to say you're welcome. You're welcome to it. There's more where that came from. Yeah. Which, when I say you're welcome, that's what I'm thinking in my head. It's not a formality. It's me saying you're welcome to it.
Nice.
I got more.
I'm still learning to receive it too.
All right, thank you. And we hope the listeners had fun and enjoyed it, and wish them all the best.
And all the best to you.
Thanks for hosting these conversations, bringing people out of themselves.
I try. It's the idea.